and I know this because I have been in the garden chasing the cat around, and more on that in a minute. But let's get started. It's gone 5 o'clock, and thank you very much for coming. So, make sure I have the right window in front of me. Here we go. I run Articulate Marketing. Started it more than 25 years ago. We do websites, brand strategy, thought leadership content, marketing, AI, and automation using HubSpot. We're interested in B2B technology companies. We build difference engines. That's where I'm coming from. So I have seen marketing teams that were huge, Microsoft, Hewlett Packard, that sort of people, that sort of organization, marketing departments that were small to non-existent, interns at clients. And of course, I have been responsible for our own marketing for all of that time, not doing all of it, but kind of overseeing it. So I also run a marketing team for my own business. So that's where I'm coming from. So today we're going to be talking about why busy and effective aren't the same, what is impactful with marketing and how to identify that versus what is time wasting. We've got a framework for improving marketing team effectiveness. This is coming from the heart because, at Articulate, we're constantly learning and relearning these lessons. And of course, you can't have a webinar these days without talking about AI. And I've got some thoughts about that building on previous webinars. I just added this picture in of my lovely new RSPCA rescue kitten Frida, who is supposed to be staying in the house and not coming out, but does a sort of Paul Newman escape run every time I open the door, and then I run around the garden trying to chase her. So luckily I just got her in before the meeting, but there she is. Because she's rescue cat, she's never seen lawns, trees. We've got a little stream outside, so this sort of wide-eyed adventurer. Anyway, that's my odd life today. So never in the field of B2B marketing has so much been expected by so many from so few. Everyone wants marketing to solve their problems, to generate demand, feed leads, report on ROI, do AI, deploy, deal with social media, raise people's presence, generate traffic, SEO, content, website content, run events, serve cocktails, just the whole kit and caboodle. And I think this has created an effectiveness crisis, to be honest. I mean, in marketing teams, but probably across the piece, there was some interesting commentary on a Harvard Business Review analysis of deployment of AI in a big organization. I think it was Amazon, where they were saying that actually it hadn't made people more productive because everyone was so busy trying to figure out how to do it. So, trying to solve and brute force and automate your way out of this just at the moment is only a potentially partial solution and potentially no solution at all. Marketing Week ran a language of effectiveness study, unfortunately back in 2024, so I don't have more up-to-date data than this, but the surveys of 1,200 marketers over a period of time found that a focus on effectiveness had dropped from 75% as a perception down to in 2022 down to 53% in 2024. In other words, this intent to make marketing teams more effective is there. The demand for marketing team services is there, but there's just a struggle to deliver. So why are marketing teams having this crisis when everybody I talk to is rushed off their feet? I mean, crazy busy and reporting, sort of almost levels of stress and overwork that would make Samuel Pepys, who was pretty hardworking in his time in the 1660s, look like a complete layabout. I don't know why he popped into my mind. I spent a lot of time thinking about him at one point. There is more content, there are more platforms, there are more campaigns to run, there's more expectations, there are so many more tools to master. I mean, when we started being a HubSpot partner in 10, 15 years ago, there was HubSpot and there were some other things and you kind of did stuff. Now there are tens of thousands of marketing tools. Anyway, and then we are constantly available and getting Slack messages and emails. I remember getting my first BlackBerry in the 90s and being appalled by how addictive it was, because I would go home in the evening and I wouldn't check my email. And now it was following me. Well, now we all live in that world. Gartner did a CMO survey recently, and they found that 64% of CMOs, so in-house marketing leads, said they lacked the budget to execute their strategy. Well, of course, everyone's under budgeted, under resourced, and underpaid, but clearly the pressure is on to do more with less. At the same time, that pressure is manifesting itself in areas of work that aren't necessarily the most effective or helpful. They're not aligned with what generates ROI, whether that's leads or whether that's supporting sales conversations or whatever it is that is a meaningful marketing activity and outcome. They're often reactive to new ideas, new trends, new requests, new platforms. Oh, we need to have an AI strategy. Oh, we need to have a social media strategy. Oh, we need to be doing something on LinkedIn. And there's this sort of sense of needing to be everywhere all the time instead of focusing on what matters and what makes a difference. And I think that choice is intrinsic, and I say this with great heavy heart because I'm the worst person at saying no to things. I want to try every new cool thing, but actually what defines success is what you say no to, not what you say yes to. So all of this is a result of competing strategy, competing priorities, lack of a clear strategy. And I talked about strategy and positioning last week in last week's webinar. Do go check it out. Unclear and inconsistent messaging, which makes kind of coordination and execution harder, and everyone's reinventing the wheel. Requests and pressures from all across the business, measuring vanity metrics or activity, right? Marks for showing up, not marks for success. And I would like to share this concept with you. Any system is perfectly optimized to deliver the results it gets. So if you want different results or different outcomes or better results, you have to change the system. You cannot expect the existing system to deliver better results just by wishing for it. That's a hard concept to get hold of, but it applies, and I think this is a wonderful outcome of cybernetic theory. It's a very interesting book, which if you email me, matthew@articulatemarketing.com, I will go and find the name of the book that I'm talking about. But it applies to systems like the NHS. It applies to systems like rules-based international trade. Systems perfectly optimized to get the results they get. Okay, so what do people do? They work harder, they pedal faster, they do more quicker, right? More blogs, but that doesn't lead to more leads. More campaigns, but that doesn't generate more pipeline. More tools doesn't actually produce more productivity. Brilliant book, fundamental book about software development, software engineering called The Mythical Man Month, which says if you add more people to a software project that's running late, it makes it later. And if you add more tools to a team that's unproductive, you probably just make them more unproductive. So there's a lot of time, friction, chasing different ideas and doing new things. And there are things in marketing that are very high leverage, high value, right? So positioning and messaging, getting that right and kind of doing the work on that. Running fewer, better campaigns that really talk to customer needs and talk in customer language. Stuff that is clearly aligned with and provably connected with revenue, with handover to sales and so on. And things that produce repeatable processes and systems, so that something that took 20 hours the first time you did it takes 15 and then 10 and then 5. That is really, really valuable, right? These are high leverage things. Back when I was in software development, we used to have a saying, non-existent code doesn't crash, which means stuff you don't need, features you don't add, gameplay features you put in your game that actually don't add to the game. If you remove them, you've got rid of the code debt. You've kind of reduced. So getting rid of stuff is really important. Also, kind of building some momentum and efficiency and going down the learning curve by doing less but better. Rolling friction is less than sliding friction. So when you try and change processes, technology, direction, plan, you have to pay a sort of tax to change. Whereas if you build momentum in the same direction, you get more progress. And I give you 3 examples of that. Example number 1, our former client and our current accountant, the Wow Company, we built their website years ago. They have an annual bench press report which benchmarks marketing agencies, and hundreds of marketing agencies fill in a research survey every year, and then they compile it into a report. If you're an agency owner like me, it's must-read stuff, and it's the reason they are our accountants, because they know about our sector and they're experts at it, and they're provably that. So really effective piece of marketing. Another example is the Igor naming guide. Since as long as I've been doing marketing, Igor is a naming agency out of, I think, Sausalito in California, and they have this naming guide. I think it's on edition 18. They just give it away on their website. Incredible brand awareness. And the guide actually tells you how to do naming, right? So that you don't need to hire them. But of course, you do need to hire them if you need to do complex trademark proof creative stuff. But it's a really good way of positioning their business. That's their marketing. And they have a blog, I think, as well. And for us at Articulate, this webinar series, this is webinar 98. I've done so since 2020. So, with different rates of speed and different publication frequency, but we're ramping it up again. It's our single best lead gen and qualification, middle of funnel piece of content, piece of marketing that we do. Okay, so here is our framework for marketing team effectiveness. And I know I'm still slightly sitting in a glass house throwing stones. We are constantly trying to do these things for Articulate with varying degrees of success and constant ambition. So prioritizing these 5 things, focus, positioning, systems, measurement, and alignment, is how you increase marketing team effectiveness. Let's get into each of those things. Thing number 1, focus. Do less better, which I talked about earlier, but prioritize high value initiatives, focus on channels, communication media that work, try and progressively clean as you cook, so you don't leave a sort of debt and a code legacy. And I say that because I've been working with my colleagues cleaning up our blogs from the way back when. And protect your team's time by not booking many meetings. And this is something we really struggle at Articulate. My head of sales, Edward, talks about success leaving clues. And I like this idea of reinforced success. You find out what works and then do more of it better and more efficiently, less of what doesn't work. Positioning I went into a lot last week on the webinar, but it's one of the main reasons why marketing campaigns fail. It's one of the main reasons why you are spending time without necessarily getting results, because if you're pushing content or doing marketing campaigns or marketing activity in the wrong direction to the wrong people about the wrong messages, and they're not consistent and so on, the effectiveness is massively eroded. But you still do as much work, actually probably do more work, because you also have to rework more when you get feedback from people who don't understand why you've done it that way because you didn't agree the messaging with them and so on. So reduce friction by improving positioning, improve targeting, and it results by improving positioning. Just going to make your marketing more effective for the same amount of effort that you put into it. Thirdly, systems. This is not so much about technology, a little bit about technology, but it's mainly about making marketing processes repeatable while maintaining the quality. There's a really good book called The Checklist Manifesto by Gatal Atawande, who is a surgeon. And in surgery, he found that if surgeons use checklists to make sure that they've done the right thing in the right order, they don't do things like leave scissors sewn up inside patients, which is, important. I'm an ex-pilot, and we use checklists all the time. So it's really interesting in 2 fields where, it's safety of life matters. You get your checklist out, you go, okay, pre-landing checklist, do this, I've got my landing gear down, I've this. I used to go flying with people and they go, why are you reading the checklist? Don't you know how to do this? And I was, yeah, I've got 1,000 hours. I know how to fly a plane, but I get the checklist out every time because I just don't want the chance of forgetting something. And it makes it very efficient. You're not relying on so much skill and heroic individualism and more on, well-tested processes. Layla Pompa, who's a friend of Articulate's and an expert on building process SOPs and things like that, search for her on YouTube. She's got some great videos and she'll talk a lot about how to build SOPs and checklists. Behind checklists, there's also this sort of idea of a shared pool of knowledge, a kind of a common know-how, a doctrine. If I can use a military idea, there's this concept of mission command. And it comes from the idea that if you are in the military and you say, I want you to achieve this outcome, but you don't delegate the means of how to do it, but you rely on the fact that everybody in the military understands, you know, how to blow up a bridge or how to do a section attack or something, and you just let them get on with it because you know what they're going to do, but you don't prescribe it so much. So this idea of mission command with shared doctrine. So at Articulate we have a writer's handbook, an Articulate writer's handbook. It's a little bit style guide, but it's mostly about our processes and about what we expect and how to do research and how to get things approved by clients and how to share. I mean, just stuff that we do. We have a project and account manager's handbook to capture this knowledge. And the latest edition is the Pencil's Home of HubSpottery, which is a sort of Harry Potter title for the basic stuff that everyone in marketing needs to know how to do things in HubSpot, so little checklists and things like that. Okay, the last point about systems I think is critical, putting in KPIs and metrics, and we'll come on to that a little bit. There's a systems part of it, like how you do it and plan it, and then there's the fact that you are doing it and implementing it. So we use a system called an EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, across the business. We're 2.5 years into doing that. It took about a year for us to kind of absorb it and think about it and work with it and be confident. It's been transformative, despite the sort of American jargon heavy University of Heathrow sort of style of things. But one of the things they do is in weekly meetings, they have 3 to 5 KPIs. And the idea is that these are leading indicators of success. And you can look at those numbers and get a pretty good idea of how effective your team is, or how effectively the company is operating at the management team level. And because it's weekly, the idea is that these are metrics that you can influence on that time scale. So you're applying this sort of, again, sorry, military theory, OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act, and you're trying to do that OODA loop weekly rather than monthly or annually. This is an incredibly powerful mechanism for ratcheting up effectiveness. Frank Williams, the F1 boss, used to say whenever he was asked to sign a check, will it make my car go faster? And fundamentally, the decision-making process is, will this make our marketing more effective? If you're measuring the right things and everyone's focused on the right metrics, it's very easy to know whether the car is going to go faster or not, or if the car is going faster or not. Lastly, alignment. And I think it's a sad truth that too often the marketing team is sort of seen by the rest of the business as the arts and crafts wing of the sales team, sales function. And, maybe organize events and invite people to things and occasionally get the chance to do a bit of website copy. That's somewhat disdainful of sales, and I don't mean it to be. I think marketing teams need to really engage with sales teams, because at the end of the day, the definition of marketing success is precursor to sales success. But I think what has to happen is there has to be a mutual understanding and a sort of a understanding of where the crossover is and what the SLAs on both sides of that alignment are, so that marketing can do what it does, which is win the air war before everyone has to sort of go in the trenches, and sales are getting what they need, which is in almost all cases sort of people who are ready, willing, and able to engage in a sales conversation with a view to buying something. And so getting this alignment right, so that the KPIs and the initiatives and the plans and the messaging and the strategy sort of all feed through into that. Surprisingly uncommon, for reasons that if you buy me a beer or send me an email, I'll speculate enthusiastically about. All right, moving on. We're doing fine. I should be done nicely before past. So stick with me. We've got a few slides about AI and then some recommendations. Okay, so William Gibson, sci-fi writer, said the future is already here, but it's unevenly distributed. And he was saying that in the 90s. Anyone who went to Japan at that time would have seen a glimpse of the future that we've gone through now. It's true of AI. And I did a really deeply thought through, researched AI webinar about 6 months ago. And fundamentally, although the technology is advancing, my opinions haven't changed. I am an human first AI pragmatist, right? I think it's got an important role to play. I'm not an AI hype booster that, everybody is going to lose their jobs, at least in the short term. And, although I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords, just in case anyone's listening. So we have to use AI carefully, correctly, usefully. In practice across marketing teams in businesses, generative AI is quite commonly used, and I'm pretty sure anyone watching this right now has used ChatGPT or Gemini today, even if it's only on a Google search. But it's not embedded. Almost all 94% of European marketing teams, organizations are at a lower moderate level of AI maturity. And I think that point I made earlier about we're also trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And I think also pretty afraid of letting AI screw things up. However, and here's the promise, mature AI users reported significant efficiency gains. And we're talking here about marketing team effectiveness. So carefully using AI can generate efficiency and effectiveness savings, freeing up the humans to do what they do best, heart, heads, hands. Yeah. So I think there's a long way for us all to go on this. We're also on that journey with everybody else. AI is, in my view, right now very good at speeding up and at the execution of low stakes work, like transcribing this thing or putting subtitles. I remember in 2020, we used to have to pay a couple of $100s to have a human being put the captions on so that people with hard of hearing could just have subtitles. And now AI just does that. We don't even think about that. Meeting notes and things. It's useful for research and ideation, and certainly I was kind of using that to find some of these stats and quotes for you today. And we're building it into HubSpot workflows, for example, to parse incoming emails and route them effectively and things like that. So that, there's. I rang up my dentist a couple of weeks ago to change an appointment, and it took me about 5 minutes before I realized I was talking to an AI receptionist. The thing that gave it away was, in fact, the little pause before the answer came back as the AI sort of processed what I'd said, thought about how to reply, and then encoded it. That's pretty remarkable, right? And I'd rather talk to an AI receptionist and get through to somebody than have to ring up 5 times waiting to, or put on hold. So, and it worked. I mean, they rescheduled my appointment. Okay. It doesn't solve for poor strategy. It doesn't solve for manifesting expertise, experience, genuine thought leadership. There's at the moment an AI isn't going to interview somebody for your podcast. It's not going to come up. I'm doing this live for you now. It's the difference between television and live theatre, right? Still not very good at being actually human. It's still a statistical process, an algorithm, a stochastic parrot. So I think there are some really good use cases for making AI solve problems for people. I think that takes effort. I think you have to pick your battles and pick your bets and be experimental about it. And I think focus on category A rather than I'm going to use AI to solve this entire journey. Instead pick bits of that and make it more efficient. And here's an example for Articulate. We have an effort estimate end-to-end for producing one of these webinars of, I think it's now 28 points. We did a little bit of tidying up. So how does that work out? It's about 14 hours approximately, but 28 points. And what we want to do over the course of the next 3 months, the next quarter, is using some workflows and some AI and some APIs, build out a lot of this stuff in a Notion database, and then have that trigger the creation of the slides, the creation of the marketing assets in HubSpot and so on. And we're still going to have to go in there and do some tidying up. But if we can automate out 10, 12 points of that 28, that would be a huge win, because we're doing these weekly. And over the course of a year, that means, a lot more time is freed up for doing something interesting rather than rather mind-numbingly dull HubSpottery. Okay, so that's an example. Again, email me. I'll tell you how we're getting on with that and what we're planning to do. My colleague Sam produced this report earlier this year. It's got all kinds of insights and analysis about how marketing teams are adopting using AI. I did a webinar July-ish last year, maybe a little later, about AI and various things, and I think that's probably our combined top thoughts on this, but there's a lot of content on our website, a lot of webinars about AI in different use cases. So, but go download this report. Again, if you email me, Matthew@Articulate Marketing, I'll send you a link. You'll get an email tomorrow with this presentation in it, and there'll be that link, it will be in it as well. Okay, so as we approach the end of our time together, I just wanted to give 2 recommendations about next steps. Recommendation number 1, in the next couple of weeks, with a view to effectiveness, just try and take a little bit of time out from the daily grind and think about one or more of these things. So auditing current activity, what potentially could you stop doing? Or even better, this is a wonderful phrase, pause for now, right? You're not killing it. You're not saying no for ever. No, just pause it. We'll focus on this. Pause it. Try and find some analytics about that would allow you comparatively to see the different initiatives, what's working and what isn't. Usually within HubSpot, the data is in there somewhere. You just have to think about how to extract it. But whatever is meaningful to you, whether it's marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads or pipeline generated or something, try and do a little bit of that number crunching if that tickles you. If it doesn't tickle you, you can use HubSpot's ChatGPT interface and an MCP connector, and you can start asking these sorts of questions from HubSpot. And it's not going to give you necessarily a deeply considered answer in the way that I might do with my experience, but it might give you some serendipitous insights, and you interact with it through a chat interface rather than report building in HubSpot, which is the kind of thing I enjoy doing. Pick a couple of priorities and reinforce them. Document a couple of processes, see how you get on with that. Perhaps build into your team meetings some KPIs that you track, some leading indicators. Just a few of these and see whether you can buy some time, get some focus, make some progress, choose some things not to do. Last recommendation, last slide, last minute. If you would like our help, we can help with thinking through all of this stuff, implementing some of these automations, thinking about how to save time on HubSpot and HubSpot stuff. We can definitely help with branding, messaging, positioning, and all that lovely stuff. So if you would like to have a chat with me one-to-one and shoulder to cry on, I don't know, agony uncle of AI implementation, whatever is going to be useful for you. If you're watching this, you're my kind of people, I'd love to help. articulatemarketing.com/meet, that's my calendar. Matthew@Articulate Marketing, just drop me an email. And that brings us very neatly to a conclusion. And I just wanted to say, as the sun has come out and this hailstorm has stopped, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me. Do come along next week for our next webinar. For now, goodbye.